We do have author Gary James in studio tonight. He's been on here 4 times. He's did part 1 through 4, reference to his new book, Black Politics 2.0, and tonight is part 5. His conversation continues. Gary, how you doing, man?
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year
and blessings and enough prosperity for the coming year, and continue the blessings.
Looking forward to it. I'm continue to be inspired by what you guys are building here.
All right,
and I'm just glad to be a part of it. And
but we won't have it no other way, my brother.
Oh, I like that.
That's for sure.
That sounds good to me.
Yes, sir.
Going forward here into 2015. So we want to continue the conversation, and again, I want to mention the interesting feedback that we've been receiving.
Right.
In fact, I want to respond to some feedback from JJ during our conversation this evening. JJ saw the program where we talked about economics, financing, and business development.
Right.
And so he got in touch with me and asked if I would share some thoughts on why entrepreneurship and business development is a very weak African American initiative. And so I thought it was an interesting question.
Right.
And I assured him that I would have a conversation on the topic, and in fact, I would probably write a post or two on it, because I believe the question is very important. So I'm going to open the conversation up this evening as to why black folk in general avoid the business experience in favor of employment and becoming a wage earner. But the question is not only an interesting one. The question is in fact a critical question, and it needs to be examined, in my view.
Right.
So we could perhaps improve on it going forward. One may offer various reasons why this phenomena is what it is, not the least of which is the unique history of African Americans in the New World. Business formation and development is not a component of the public school curriculum, and therefore business culture as a matter of fact has more to do with how one is exposed to business growing up, whether business is a part of the family discussion or activity. And with few exceptions, black families are comprised of wage earners. Therefore, business formation and business culture is not typical to the black family experience. Moreover, the popular refrain within the black community, of course, is to go to college, get a good education, and get a good job. Consequently, the good job mentality is peculiar to our entering and remaining in the middle class. And so landing a good job and keeping it has been pretty much the conventional wisdom for young black men and women. On the other hand, there are some among us who are interested in a business experience and feel an organic inspiration to pursue entrepreneurship and a business experience. This business and entrepreneurial inclination by some is invariably met with scorn and or indifference by some friends and family, generally speaking.
Okay, Gary, as you hit on that point too, you know, if that's your drive, if that's your piece, if that's what you really desire to do, you shouldn't. I feel that you shouldn't let nobody, family or friend or foe, hamper you from going into that road. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you. That's the bottom line. And in fact, what you realize you have to do, for the most part, to pursue the business or entrepreneur experience is swim upstream.
Right.
You know, when it comes to your family and friends and the kind of feedback that they give you. And obviously there are many hazards and difficulties and challenges associated with making a business successful.
Right.
And so that alone is a major challenge.
Right.
So when you have to deal with that major challenge, in addition to the kind of feedback that you're liable to get, you have a tendency to be discouraged. But the point is, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Exactly.
And we have to learn to move beyond our comfort level. And so the person who ends up following through on his or her business inclination shows that particular quality, demonstrates that particular quality of tenacity and stick-to-itiveness that's required to make a business a successful enterprise.
You know what somebody just said to me, I think it was a day or two ago, Gary, is that if he know that you, like, okay, I'm coming to you, you're the financier, you get the money, I'm coming to you to get a loan from you, and if he knows that this is the first time I'm coming into business to try to do something, he might give you the money, but he's very reluctant. The next guy said that he gives money out to people that fails several times because he knows that individual is going to end up making it, because he has that drive, he has the tenacity. He don't care if he fails, he continue to still try. So that's who he gives his money to. That was deep when he said that. I said, wow. I said, okay.
Yeah, well, you're talking about how a venture capitalist or investor,
right,
or an equity partner would consider making that investment. And it makes more sense to consider investing in a project when you realize that the project manager has been involved in business ventures and knows what it is to fail
Yes.
in business and continue to try. You see, and that is the part that people generally don't understand about business. It's not a either or thing. It is a process that you have to build upon.
Right.
And you build upon that process by undertaking particular areas of concern that may or may not pan out.
Right.
But you have to be convinced within yourself that the process is a valid one, and you just really have to manipulate things and manipulate the process to the extent that you can see some advancement. And so failure is not something that is easy for the entrepreneur to just accept and walk away from.
Right.
You know, it's something that kind of inspires the entrepreneur to put some corrective measures in place. And that's what business development, business formation is about, but it's not an easy process.
Right. Right.
It is not an easy process, and it is not a 9-to-5 process. It requires much more time
Yes.
than a 9-to-5
Definitely.
process.
Yep.
And so it can be very engaging, but it is a process that once you begin to undertake it, other things occur while you are trying your best to pull it off. And sometimes, while it's not a good business idea, sometimes God works in mysterious ways.
Yes.
So when you try in earnest to do some things, sometimes you get results that are unexpected. So the process of building a business and engaging an idea, trying to cultivate an idea, does wonders in terms of building character and understanding how the process of life moves forward.
Right.
You know, and so you know, it's quite an interesting lesson that comes about when you take on the responsibility of trying to build a business and going against the conventional wisdom and having confidence in what you believe you can do. So while it's easier to be a wage earner and much more difficult to start up a business or try to cultivate a business idea so that it generates an income for you, you know, the lessons are beyond one's imagination. So as an entrepreneur personally, I could only encourage folk to jump into the process. But there are many difficulties, obviously, that occur with business, trying to start a business. And since black folk don't have a familial history with it, or a public school curriculum that kind of lays the process out, the problem of how to successfully start a business becomes a daunting one. But the key is to seek out information about business development, and from your own standpoint, begin to think outside of the box, and don't take as gospel what others may say about your business project, your business idea, or your excursion into the business of business, because they don't know. You know? See, so you get your feet wet and start the process of business development. There are many arguments that can be advanced relative to the factors that perpetuate our general lack of a business inclination. Certainly there's a spectrum of arguments that can be advanced, some more compelling than others, and the reasons vary as to why this is the case, and the reasons vary depending upon who you talk to. But we're not going to contribute to that colorful argument about how and why it is what it is. Apart from that disclaimer, I advocate including entrepreneurial and a business experience as an option, along with the other option of employment and job seeking. So an employment situation or job shouldn't be considered to the exclusion of entrepreneurship or a business idea. It should be considered, both should be considered, because both the employment and business experience is healthy, and we can learn from either of them. And one generally helps the other. You know, there was a time when I was a little boy that a parent can work on a job, and that one job was sufficient to raise a family.
That's right.
And that person could stay on that job and be assured of steady employment and so forth. Today is a completely different story. There is not a single job opportunity apart from the professions that are lucrative enough for one parent to be the breadwinner.
Right.
It doesn't happen like that anymore. In fact, it doesn't happen that jobs are so stable that one can envisage spending a virtual lifetime of employment on a particular job.
Right.
And so therefore, whereas during those days one would feel a little guilty if they lost the job, nowadays jobs come and go so quick. And the pay is so poor that people need 2 or 3 jobs.
Right.
And so in a family, in the classic nuclear family, both parents are working, and both parents might have more than one job.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So things as they present themselves today are much different than they were when I was growing up. So the idea of changing job is not problematic as it was, and you could expect that you might have to change job or jobs, or something happens where you would lose your job. And also the whole idea of the fact that salaries are so limited. In order to live comfortable, you may have to think in terms of some self-employment options. So I throw that out because the situation as it currently is very, very difficult. And so Black Americans have had a very sordid relationship with employment these days. And so it makes sense to consider these business ideas, although it is difficult to realize some success. So apart from the factors that contribute to this situation, while we won't argue the rhyme or the reason regarding our lack of business culture, I would direct the conversation to the outcome of the fact that black folk have no business culture within our family, or likewise, we don't have an economy within our community. Perhaps we need to examine the outcome of our family and community situation to come to a coherent understanding as to why this is not the case. Obviously, our current economic and business circumstance is directly related to how our future would be. So, in order for us to increase the future possibilities of building an economy and a business culture in the black community, we need to examine the outcome of the fact that we are in an economically helpless situation. For starters, my observation is that the African American community is the oldest and arguably the most numerous political minority in the United States of America. And African Americans have a rich history of forward movement, from emancipation through the modern civil rights movement up to the political advent of President Barack Obama. Nevertheless, black folk are currently the weakest minority as compared to other minorities in the country, particularly Hispanics, Asians, women, and gays. In addition to being the political weakling as compared to other minorities, if you substitute the word political for economic, the truth would still remain. The black community is an economic weakling as compared to other minority communities. And that's a matter that we have to contend with in real terms. The fact is, the dollar doesn't circulate among our blacks, other blacks in the community. Hence, the dollar comes in, then goes right back out. Therefore, there's no measurable economy in the black community for the most part. There is only a sprinkling of businesses and entrepreneurs. The black community is essentially a consumer community. We often talk about the poor level of political leadership as at the elected level and at the grassroots level. We talk about this in glib terms. But the level of intractable economic deficiency has a direct relationship with the political weakness that characterizes the black community. Unfortunately, there's no discernible strategy on the horizon that can improve the problem going forward. Therefore, to some extent, as it relates to the black community going forward, every man for himself and God for us all. As a practical political matter, what does it look like objectively when we examine the general status of the black community in the Virgin Islands and on the mainland? Although on one hand, you have a majority black community, and on the other hand, you have a minority black community, respectively. Despite the obvious differences between the two communities, there are some interesting and obvious differences. But at the same time, there are some similarities between the two communities. Accordingly, it's easy to see or imagine how the economic state of the black community at large is reflected in how we in the Virgin Islands and in the States are, our economic status. Just extrapolate on black communities in America, or in fact, the world. You have essentially the same scenario. The Virgin Islands is overwhelmingly black in terms of population and government. But a cursory observation of the ownership of small businesses, such as gas stations, local stores, and businesses in general, it becomes clear that blacks are not among the business ownership class. Moreover, local banks are primarily owned by Puerto Ricans, and the various business franchises are owned by other than local folk. There doesn't seem to be any volition on the part of black folk in general to improve the scenario. Of course, we talk a lot about it, but beyond the rhetoric, nothing substantial occurs. We could blame it on the leadership. That's convenient. But what are we doing? Over the decades, self-government and the elected leadership have demonstrated poor judgment and inept economic contract negotiating skills when it comes to introducing industrial development on the islands. Therefore, there has never been a balanced quid pro quo arrangement on behalf of Virgin Islanders. So the future has been squandered over decades by poor leadership at the government negotiation level. And the result of decades of this lack of development and industrial development has left the environment not suitable for developing an agricultural or fishing industry, for example. But these two industries are critical to developing a diverse economy. And it appears that the government and the people are not currently positioned to make a smooth transition. So building a viable and diverse economy is a major challenge here in the Virgin Islands. But the bottom line consideration of the Virgin Islands economy is a transition from the one-dimensional tourism economy. The VI needs to restructure and broaden its tourism product to include the colorful and rich history and culture that is on St. Croix and St. John. The tourism product needs to be restructured, and the priority should be rebuilding the infrastructure, which is seriously deteriorated, as well as the strong points of the two islands that are neglected in the tourism product equation, St. Croix and St. John. But obviously the advent of Cuba opening up to receive the world community will have a negative impact on the future Virgin Islands tourism product. And that's currently underway. But for that specific reason is why the scope and substance of the VI tourism going forward must be addressed, must be restructured. And the current economic situation on the Virgin Islands is critical. But there are also major opportunities associated with entrepreneurs and businesses to grow as the VI turns the economic corner. The question becomes, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? So it all depends upon our thinking. Our thinking will determine how we deal with the challenges that seem dark and dim. But sometimes blessings can come in elaborate disguises. Sometimes blessings can come out of what is apparently dread, a terrible scenario. My mother always taught me that necessity was the mother of invention. So we cannot foreclose upon the potential opportunities that are associated with the challenges that we face in the Virgin Islands. Without equivocation, the economic and business trajectory of the Virgin Islands is a critical issue for the territory, the family, and residents. All hands are required on deck. The problem, such as it is in the States, has similarities, but the resolution is much more complicated and sophisticated and fraught with booby traps. We have a classic situation of broad opportunities here in the Virgin Islands. Not true in the States. Very unfortunate. Blacks are a minority among a minority, or among other minorities in the States and in New York. And black folk, among the many minorities, black folk are at the bottom of the pecking order. For example, Puerto Ricans, Dominican Republicans, the Republic, and more recently, the Mexican community, all have an organic business culture. Consequently, when they move into the black community, they ultimately become a controlling factor in the economy of the black community. The respective Hispanic communities have the capacity to hire their own community members and set up businesses within the black community. On the other hand, no black person can be a business owner and open shop in a Hispanic neighborhood community. It's unheard of. Just an example of how things are and how we will have to cope with how things are. Because a lot of stuff we can't change, and change doesn't come overnight. So we have to learn how to deal with how things are, like it or not. And if a black person opens a place of business in the black community, black consumers won't automatically support the black business.
Gary, that's so deep. That is so deep and profound.
It is, man.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the major issues. What crashes the entrepreneur when he goes into his neighborhood.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah, we go to everybody else and support.
That's right.
And we
are
Mr.
faced
James,
with
Mr.
a hopeless
David,
case.
What are you doing over there, Mr. David? You trying to open a shop? All right, okay. You stay there. See if I come and buy a soda from you. You know what I'm saying? This is the mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Serious,
bro.
Yeah. I have experience in live and direct. So I know. I ain't asking, I ain't guessing. I have experience in it. So
yeah, that's gospel, bro. You know. And I know. That's why I'm saying it. And it's serious. That's why I'm saying it too. You see? And we got to deal with it. That's why I'm saying it. You know? So these are things that are real. And we can't change this stuff. But we have to realize how we have to succeed in spite of this stuff. There is little, if any, business formation and entrepreneurial development in the black community. And campaigns that encourage black business development and buy black initiatives amount only to a romantic exercise in wishful thinking. Nevertheless, our effort, must be applied and sustained despite the many difficulties and self-imposed obstacles. We are in our own way. So we got to deal with that. So fortunately, there's nothing standing in the way of business formation and development in the black community. We are in our own way as far as moving forward with the black business and entrepreneurial imperative. It's on us. It is on the black people singularly to consider the business experience option in addition to employment scenarios. But we must begin to think outside of the box and consider broader horizons, opportunities, ideas, and concepts. we must engage the learning curve. We can't run from it. We must engage the learning curve and move beyond our comfort zones. Nothing's happening there. We ain't gonna learn nothing there. We getting too old to hang out there. We gotta chart a new course. Interestingly enough, the race dynamic is not an obstacle to our business and entrepreneurial experiments, exercises, and pioneering. Race may have been a factor that contributed to the economic situation at large, such as it is, and the general state of mind of black folk regarding business. Certainly it had a factor in our Constitution. Although there are many sophisticated and tricky ideas that put a negative spin on business formation and development, everything requires financing. If a community cannot finance its needs and objectives, the community is doomed to marginalization and ultimate extinction. And I don't think we want to go that route. And my general observation is that we are too creative over the centuries to go that route. We have to begin to count on us, which is a major exercise from where we be. Sophisticated, tricky, and misguided ideas and concepts associated with capitalism, for example, and wealth development has tainted and put a negative connotation on business. But everything requires a budget in order to make it happen and be sustained. Everything. I like to quote a famous saying by a person in my father's generation who would often say, quote, "Without bread, a stud can't even rule an anthill." So if we can't rule an anthill without bread, how can we run our community without it? So we have to look at some other stuff and think about some other things and approach some of these ideas and concepts with a little bit more study under our belt, knowledge and application going forward. Black folk have throughout history come up with innovations, but when it comes to taking the idea or product to the marketplace, we always until recently, relied on others to take it to market for us. We need to learn to do that business ourselves. And fortunately, technology has developed in such a way that we can do things today that were heretofore prohibitive because of the investment cost, the price, the capital required, the learning curve. We can do all of that with much greater ease in this information age, in this 21st century, in this age of digital technology. Throughout history, we black folks have not been able to finance our freedom and independence. The most recent successful civil rights movement could not be sustained beyond the 1960s because the white liberals that financed it became ambivalent following the successes of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, respectfully. Subsequently, black political growth could not be sustained because of the lack of financing and various advances that were secured became moot points because black economics could not sustain our political advances and initiatives. That's what happened to affirmative action. It was around us, we were the impetus for that, but black folk never became the recipients of that. Other quote-unquote minorities did. And I thought the fact that women were included in minority as minorities was interesting, you know, as compared to black folk. Women are the majority. However, we have acted only as political pawns and not able to advance our independence and political sovereignty because we can't rule an anthill. So we have to look at the 21st century in such a way that we claim it. That we claim it as black folk in the new world in such a way that it moves us from the bottom to become factors in how business and politics is done on the planet. We have that potential, and some would argue that we have that calling. And so it's required for us to step up to perform our responsibility and destiny, as it were. The bottom line is that we need to get on the learning curve and understand a little more about business and money, how they work and how they are organized. We are going to explore the business and economic factor in our ongoing conversations. Economics and business is critical in our ongoing conversation, and it's critical to the advancement in the VI and in the States, our advancement. I'm going to recommend that you research 2 concepts to help generate a broader understanding relative to money and banking and how they work. A better understanding of these concepts will be helpful going forward, and I'm working on some projects that I will introduce to the producers here that I hope to implement following our conversation program to begin to focus on the economic and business piece. There's an application that I'm working on. I'll share with the proprietors here, as well as give you a heads up going forward. But there are 2 basic concepts I'd like you to do your own research on. I'm not going to define them for you. I'm sure you could do your Google or Bing or however you research your thing. But the 2 concepts are, the first one is fractionalized banking. Fractionalized banking. You Google or Bing that and see what you come up with, and give you a general understanding of how money, or what money is and what it ain't, and how it's used. And some interesting things. Fractionalized banking. And the other item I'd like you to research is Banker's Manifesto. Banker's Manifesto. So those are 2 areas I'd like you to look into, and they'll be a part of our ongoing conversation, particularly the application that we put in place following the conversation series which we are engaged in currently. So this is new information to think about, so we can become what we think. So I'm talking with my 2 young brothers here on my follow-up programming, and when we complete the conversation series, we'll begin to talk more about the business and entrepreneurial piece, as well as a political information clearinghouse. That's another project that we're working on to introduce here, as well as religious appreciation, which deals with some ideas that we think is important to advance. So I don't know how we're doing time-wise.
Just a few more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, just a few more minutes.
All right. Well, let me just give you a heads up for the next show, which is what, the 22nd?
22nd.
Yeah, the
22nd of January.
22nd of January. We're going to deal with some more current events. In fact, Ross Soup raised the point, might have been a show or two ago, raised a scriptural reference. I think we were talking about the race dynamic. And so Brother Soup raised a scriptural piece. And when I got home that evening, I had another email from a friend of mine, a brother out of Baltimore named Smitty. We did a lot of things going back in the day. And he pointed to a similar idea regarding the religious dimension. So next week or next show, we're going to focus on the religious dimension and, the race question or the race phantom. But we'll talk about that in greater detail on the 22nd. We'll discuss whether race is real or make-believe. And we will explore the religious dimension associated with race. And so I'll probably start off with a disclaimer. But it might be appropriate for me to make a brief disclaimer. I won't do an elaborate thing, but I'll do a brief disclaimer because I don't want to give the impression that I would be proselytizing my faith or talking about anyone's faith. So it is important for me to give an appropriate disclaimer on that and advise everyone where I'm coming from, so we could minimize the extent to which I'm misunderstood. You know, misunderstanding is perhaps endemic to the human dilemma.
It's dangerous.
Yes.
Dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Yeah. So we'll do what we can to minimize it and, put it in perspective. But there's some very important areas that we need to examine, explore, and talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll let it be.
We'll let it be.
But thank you, my brothers. I appreciate you as always, and I love what you do, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Hey,
That's how it goes down,
that
you know?
says it all,
All right,
Gary.
bro.
Thank you much, man. Thank you for coming in and spending the time with us, you know, and dropping that high knowledge on the world, you know.
Yeah, well, it's about us. You inspire me, and so I look forward to doing this whenever we get the opportunity to do it.
Yes, I.
And I want to tell you that I'm already inspired
Inspired, okay.
about the follow-up stuff. So after we do the 14 programs, I got some other stuff I'm gonna whip on you, and I'll
Okay.
probably give you a preview
Okay.
for you to look at.
Right.
You know, so we got something going on.
Definitely, my brother. Definitely.
All right. Our guest tonight is author Gary James. I want to say thank you for coming out to the studio again. He just completed part 5, Black Politics. His conversation continues. Black Politics 2.0. His conversation continues, part 5. He'll be back on January 22nd, Thursday, 2 weeks from today, with part 6 moving forward. Real quick, Soup, this is the It's Your Perspective talk show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until
340-201-9005. That's the telephone number.
That's it right there, man. You can text us or telephone us on that number. We have 2 Facebook pages. You can link us up on VI Perspective. Tweet with us there. The show's mission is just simply to inform and empower everyone. And most importantly, we are streaming live from the high-tech, low-tech studio at an undisclosed location, beautiful island of St. Croix, Virgin Islands. No radio, no TV, internet only.
Yes, I.
That's how it goes down, man. So, Super, it's Thursday. We'll be back next week, Tuesday.
Right.
More fun stuff, more guests. And it's like, as always, Soup, any final words?
Thank you again, Gary, for coming in. Rastafari lives. One perfect love.
Yeah, and as always, man, one perfect love is our prayers and his blessings. When you put it all together, you get one perfect love. That's what we're all aiming for. At least that's what I'm aiming for.
Everybody have a safe and wonderful weekend.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You know, and Happy New Year to the world. We have a new administration in office. Time to build. Better get ready to build because we in crisis mode.
Yeah, everybody get a hammer and some nails and let's start building.
Start building, okay? Yeah.
That's how it goes down, man. Anyway, we're going to leave it at that, Soup.
Yeah, man.
And, we'll definitely be getting ready to get ready for next weekend. What am I looking for here? I don't see it. But anyway, we'll just leave it at that for right now. All right, we're out.
Smoking in the Earthsman town. They just can't cook down in the Earthsman town. I just the high grade alone. I just the high type on the trees down. Whoa, me touch the scene, the place full up. Chug, cut the load and boom tune and get full up. High grade and cocaine, enough is to up. Bust pipe, drop the bomb and it goes sound in a Europe. Me and my eye drink tippy. I sit and try to figure out the herb you get so pretty and stick it till me whitey. Then I fight the ganja later on a beg pity. Whoa, no cigarette smoking in the Earthsman town. They just can't cook down in the Earthsman town. I just the high grade alone. I just the high top on the trees down. Whoa, no cigarette smoking in the Earthsman town. They just can't cook down in the Earthsman town. I just the high grade alone. I just the high top on the trees down. Any day, me ready fi go march. When me like that ganja split for lava. At a fire burn. Don't know. Ooh, 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 ooh. Hey, hey. Crushable spy.